Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's coverage of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia, the fighting continues. We're going to go over a couple of different topics today that focus on the ongoing conflict. But first, we'll kind of jump right into the meat and potatoes of the ongoing conflict that is taking place, especially in the Tigray region, and then we'll kind of go down further south west towards Oromia and talk about that a little bit as well. But first and foremost, we have to say that the Anaconda strategy by the Abiy loyalist forces are still in full effect. We're probably seeing more of a stranglehold in terms of the ability to provide food and aid relief inside of Tigray. That is even greater than what has happened in other conflicts around the world. So, for instance, in Syria, during that civil war, it was easier for the United Nations to deliver food and aid to Syrian rebels fighting the Bashar al-Assad government than it is right now for United Nations aid convoys to enter the Tigray region because of the brutal Anaconda strategy that also completely eliminates the concept of delivering food and other aid into the Tigray region. So just kind of ponder that for a second. In the actual battlefield news, we're continuing to see the Tigray Defense Forces position itself for a possible large-scale operation. Obviously, there is an operation underway as we speak in which forces of the Tigray Defense Force has crossed the Tigray River. They have crossed and control areas in western Tigray, in the northern Amhara region, across the Tigray River. But this operation looks to be more focused on, quite possibly, the complete and utter recapture of the entire western Tigray region. And we continue to see these infiltration groups crossing the Tigray River at various points, and it would appear that a operation, again, as I talked about in previous videos, and this operation will probably be a multi-week, quite possibly multi-month operation, especially in terms of seizing the entirety of western Tigray. But right now, the Tigrayan Defense Forces have indeed crossed at various points across the Tigray River and continue its buildup near Adi Remets. We're also continuing to see fighting within the vicinity of Adi Arke. The Tigrayan Defense Forces control Adi Arke. I know it shows disputed, but the TDF is actually operating now both south, west, and east of Adi Arke as we speak. But again, as I talked about in previous videos, we will probably be seeing a larger operation start to manifest itself as the Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to move forces and additional firepower that was positioned in southeastern Tigray, facing down the Abiy loyalist formations in southeastern Tigray. And again, we're seeing the additional deployment and probably the greatest concentration of Tigrayan Defense Forces positioning itself along the Tigray River and crossing the Tigray River since we've seen during the course of this conflict. There were attempts earlier, more probing attempts that were made in terms of crossing the Tigray River and launching operations into western Tigray. But this operation that is currently underway and continues to grow in strength, more of a cold start type of operation, is probably going to be the largest operation we've seen it as of yet towards the western Tigray area of operations. And again, the whole concept of this is to be able to secure that very important border with Sudan, which would then allow aid and other supplies to come in to the Tigray region proper. And obviously that is very important given the current situation. In other news, we continue to see sporadic fighting taking place in southeastern Tigray. It would appear as of right now the federal forces, the Abiy loyalist forces, separate from the Amhara regional militia forces, are now starting to really focus on what is happening in Oromia. And again, we're starting to see an uptick in airstrikes on Oromia towns and villages throughout the Oromia region. We're starting to see the widespread use of drone activity in Oromia as well. So again, it would appear that the Abiy loyalists, the federal forces of the forces that are fighting the Tigrayan Defense Forces and the Oromia Liberation Army, are now starting to pay more attention to the OLA aspect of this conflict. And again, that is causing some rift, obviously, between the Abiy loyalist forces, the federal forces, and some of the Amhara regional militia forces that are still fighting in the Tigray region or south of the Tigray region. So again, we're continuing to see this split take place, where we're seeing more of an Amhara-centric army being created, and then you still have the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, which at this channel we are identifying them as Abiy loyalist forces, because that is what they are. They are very loyal to Abiy Ahmed and the Prosperity Party. So we continue to see that, and there is now somewhat of a fracture in terms of operational deployment, and we've seen that really through the course of this conflict in terms of what we have seen in terms of unity of command, and one fighting force wanting to do this, and then another fighting force wanting to do that, or another unit wanting to have different objectives from the actual overall objective or war goal or war aim of what we're seeing in terms of the forces that are allied against the Tigrayan Defense Forces. So again, you have the Amhara regional militias, and you have a variety of militias, including Fano. Then you have the Abiy loyalist formations, which constitutes the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, made up of a variety of different ethnic groups in that force as well. And again, those two forces find themselves at odds at times in terms of military objectives. And in this case, obviously, the Amhara regional militias are more focused on the Tigrayan Defense Forces, but at the same time, elements of the Amhara regional militias do focus on the border areas with the Amhara region and Oromia, and we've continued to see hostilities between ethnic Amharans and Oromo peoples as well. But within the context of a direct threat to the Amharan region, that would be the Tigrayan Defense Forces. So that is why we see more attention by the Amhara regional paramilitary forces focused on the Tigrayan Defense Forces in the Tigray region. And obviously, we are also looking at the issue with Western Tigray, which the Amhara regional militias want to attempt to hold on to at all costs, as do the Eritrean army as well. And we have received some intel in reference to the Eritrean army, and I'll talk about that here very, very quickly. But again, we continue to see these drone strikes, these airstrikes occurring more and more frequently in the Oromia region, as Addis Ababa, also known as Finfinne, the Prosperity Party, Abiy Ahmed, now turns his attention to attempting to ultimately defeat the Oromo Liberation Army. And again, large areas of the Oromia region are under the control of the Oromo Liberation Army and continue to resist the Prosperity Party and Abiy Ahmed and his Abiy Ahmed loyalist formations. But again, That is the status right now. The fighting continues in Oromia. It is widespread with, again, large areas under the control of the Oromo Liberation Army. And that was directly attributed to the recent advances by the Tigrayan Defense Forces when they had launched that massive invasion into the Amhara region and at one point threatened Debre Berhan. As far south as Debre Berhan. That opened up the door for the Oromo Liberation Army to then seize fairly significant tracts of land and area in the Oromia region. So now the Abiy loyalist government, the Abiy loyalist forces are now having to attempt to engage the Oromo Liberation Army in those areas that the OLA had taken. Once the Tigrayan Defense Forces departed the Amhara region and went back to the Tigray region. But we're also hearing reports of continued mobilization by the Eritrean army, especially in western Tigray. It would appear that as the Tigrayan Defense Forces continue to cross the Tikizi River and threaten Adi Ramets, which is right here, we continue to see the Eritrean army continue to bolster its forces in the western Tigray region. And at some point, we can expect to see a greater level of conflict between the actual Eritrean army, which is based over here and deployed heavily in Humera and along the border with Sudan and north of Humera as well. So we could see at some point renewed a more robust, renewed intervention by the Eritrean army in western Tigray, and quite possibly along the northern border of the Tigray region as well. But again, that is the current status of the conflict. We continue to see airstrikes throughout the Tigray region. We continue to see the use of drones in the Tigray region. Now, with that being said, we're starting to see an uptick again in drone activity in the Oromia region as the Abiy loyalists kind of turn their firepower on the Oromo Liberation Army as we speak. But again, that is the news. I'm going to conduct another video. This is going to be on the No More movement right after this video. I'm going to separate it. And I just want to bring some clarity for individuals in the United States and other areas of the world that may have jumped on the bandwagon of this No More movement. And again, I want to bring clarity. I want to remove false narratives and bring truth and insight to this conflict that we're seeing. And again, that video will be out very, very shortly right after this one. Have a good day, everybody.